All right, as we dive back into it now, always trying to get you the best conversations possible, the most information, so that you are very well informed. Bill Walton is the host of the Bill Walton Show, formerly served on the action and landing teams for Donald J. Trump, 2016 and the transition team. Man, that seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? Man, it's like almost a different lifetime. Bill, welcome back to the program.
Great to be back. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much, Bill. I greatly appreciate that. Me and Teddy Roosevelt have shared this day for, well, my entire life.
I have a grandson named after Teddy Roosevelt, so it's a good day.
You know what it proves, Bill? All progressives weren't nuts. All right.
Well, he was a pretty progressive guy.
He was in some ways, but he also believed in America, in hard work, in strengthening the military. You know, if not for Teddy Roosevelt, we never would have been prepared for World War I. As the Undersecretary of the Navy, man, he did big things. Anyhow, for a different day, I suppose. So let's talk about Trump's visit with Xi Jinping is coming up here at the end of this week. And then maybe a visit to China early 2026. And I've got word here from Scott Bessent that they've made a deal on trade. Look, I'm looking at the markets here. The markets are already on fire. It could break 48,000 today with a little boost, right? You're looking at investments, you're looking at energy policy that makes sense, and now these tariffs. And I want to say this about the farmers. I talked about this to begin with. Farmers I talked to say soybean prices today are a little bit better than they were in the fall of 24. They are glad that they're cutting the ties with China and opening up markets in Japan or for biodiesel because they don't want to be dependent on China, right? These are tough decisions, and yeah, there'll be bumps in the road, but they're important decisions, aren't they?
Well, they're absolutely important. And, you know, the thing to keep in mind is the United States, virtually every major industry in America has had deep or sometimes very deep relationships with China. I mean, NBA's got a $1.5 billion deal, and Apple, you know, Apple makes almost all its iPhones there. So unwinding the trade with China to America's benefit is, you know, probably one of the toughest things a president can do. And I think Trump's up to the job. But, you know, this is the first trip in my memory, and I believe it's true, that a U.S. president has gone abroad primarily with an economic agenda. I mean, usually they go and they're talking about arms and treaties and diplomatic ties and that sort of thing. But this is expressly aimed at America first and resetting a relationship with China that works to our benefit.
Yeah, you know, we've got to make a deal. Look, when President Trump says that we've been taken advantage of, it's true. And it's not just China, it's Canada. You know, this guy up there is still pushing for, you know, Mark Carney now, got to have zero emissions, net zero. He's insane. You can do that with Canada. You would kill America. I like Chris Wright, the energy secretary. You don't hear much about him, but he's quietly getting a lot of big things done that will power the future of this country. We are a net exporter. We're going to have an LNG pipeline coming out of Alaska, fueling the world with liquefied natural gas. We're going into rare earth. We're not going to be beholden to China. I mean, these are all, they don't get the attention of a ballroom at the White House, but they're much more important, aren't they?
Well, yeah.
I mean,
you know, the thing who is not energy independent is China,
right?
And so we definitely have some cards to play there. They've tried to build a green industry, so-called, to placate the globalists, but what they're really doing is they're building coal plant after coal plant after coal plant, and so you know, this is interesting how this will play out. You know, what we've got to figure out, though, is this rare earth minerals problem. Unfortunately, and remember, starting with Henry Kissinger, there are an awful lot of people in the United States that have been China enablers. And that's left us in a position where, because of environmental rules and so on and so forth, we can't mine or process rare earth and other strategic minerals here in the U.S. I mean, maybe a tiny amount. And so we've got to rebuild that industry. It's probably going to take 5 years at least to get it back to some
But
sort
we're
of
on the
parity.
road there. I mean, we're headed there. Look, in the state of Michigan where I live, we have rare earth. Minnesota has it. Wyoming has it in spades. Alaska has it in spades. I mean, we have the resources, but you're right. It's the processing part of it that we really need to ramp up and fast.
Processing it,
Yes.
digging the stuff out of the ground and making the, you know, processing it, and it's dirty. And it, you know, it's, if you're an EPA type, You don't want us doing that in America, and a lot of people have not in my backyard. I think that's going to change because the technology has changed radically from what it was 20, 30 years ago. And I know we can process this here, it's particularly now that we've got a lot of urgency to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have urgency. Look, that's where energy policy and rare earth policy intersect.
Yeah.
Because you've got to have the energy to power the AI. That's why all this, windmills and solar panels, those are nice in a cartoon. And maybe it's nice on scale. Here at my farm, I could run the place with solar panels and a big wind turbine, right? But it doesn't scale to the point of running cities. That's where you need modular nuclear, you need coal-fired power plants, you need natural gas, you need energy, and then you also need these rare earth elements. That's where they intersect, right?
Well, wait till Mondami tries to power New York with wind and solar.
Yeah. But I laugh about it, but it's sad to me because you can't make America great again without making the cities, beautiful and safe again. And so I look at D.C. Look, there's been 15 homicides since the 11th of August. 15. It's almost 80 days with 15 homicides. There hasn't been a stretch in my lifetime or yours with that few murders in the capital of the United States. It's working. It's also working in Memphis. Why would the Democrats be opposed to making America safe again?
Well, you look at what's happened in San Francisco. Trump promised to bring Army reserves into San Francisco, and because of that, San Francisco got its act together and started doing all the things that President Trump would wanted to have done there. And so hopefully other cities will get the same message. We don't necessarily need to send troops. People just need to stop defunding the police and prosecute criminals and do those sort of basic 101 things for public safety. And, hopefully this is pushing everybody in that direction. Although with some of these big city mayors like Chicago, you just
what an
wonder
idiot.
how that's gonna turn out.
Look, I thought Lori Lightweight was bad as the mayor of Chicago. And she looked like a character out of Star Wars, and so it is. But the fact of the matter is, he's worse. This guy is awful. He's destroying Chicago, and he's doing it boldly and proudly. It is strange as hell. There have been almost 4,000 people shot in Chicago this year, almost 400 murders, and they're like, everything's good in Chicago. It is? You're good with this. I'll give you the last word, Bill.
Well, and he also had J.B. Pritzker, sort of the Job of the Hut governor of Illinois, who's exacerbating it. I think Donald Trump's got us on the right track. And this trip to Asia, he's not only visiting China, but 6 or 7 other countries and developing closer relationships with them. We need to keep in mind, China is the economic driver in the world right now. It's certainly not Europe. And so if we do things right with Asia Pacific, I think he's doing exactly the right thing.
Yeah, we'll see what this conversation turns out. But like I said, Scott Bessent says they've got the framework of a deal in place. We'll see if that happens. It could be great guns for all of us if that happens. And it helps the whole world if China and America get along. But we cannot be dependent on the CCP. They're not to be trusted now or ever. That's a fact. Bill, appreciate you being here as always. Thank you.
Great. Good talking.
Good talking to you. All right, we'll take a break and be right back. It is the Steve Gruber Show.